Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Wine Shark Wednesday. I, your host, Wine Shark, here on a nice spring forward, fall back, the sky and clock don't match anymore type of thing. So it's now dark outside when we begin our show, which is kind of cool for lighting, I suppose, because it makes things simpler. Don't have to worry about the curtains. But anyway, it's been an interesting couple of days, I'm sure for all of you. The What's New segment of our show, just kind of get you guys caught up. We're all still here and still standing. I mean, anxiety's kind of high, but that's 2020 for you. Welcome to the jungle, so to speak. So, yeah, it's been a thing. So, Hawaiian Shark Wednesday. Why is it Hawaiian Shark Wednesday, John Kerry? I don't understand. I mean, I got my Wine Folly shirt on though. It's my red, my and my it's almost like my red versus blue shirt, but mostly about the art that's in the middle. It's my love the folks over at Wine Folly. Very cool shirt that was a gift from my mom. So anyway, let's see here. What else is going on? Let's oh man, funny news, odd news. I mean, not funny per se, but just like WTF because in the wine world, right? So Canada got an article that I found on CNN of a Canadian vineyard, Vignoble Côte Rougemont. Vignoble Côte Rougemont had half a ton of Vidal Blanc grapes stolen right before their harvest. The night before they're going to harvest their grapes, somebody came in and stole about 3,800 US dollars worth of grapes. Like, who does that? I mean, it's just the article, the report, talked to the vineyard manager, etc. It's talk about just frustrating, and you work hard on something for 6 months, only to have the day before you're ready to roll, it just disappears. So yeah, just that's just worse. That's so 2020. I think we're gonna try and work on coining 2020 as simply a word for just meaning totally crappy. So surprise, surprise, that's a very 2020. The Italian authorities also discovered a wine imitation ring, a counterfeiting ring, which hit the news. I haven't done much. I haven't done full dig into it, but basically they were producing several $100 bottles of wine as fakes and selling them. So kind of like the idea between the in the movie and documentary Sour Grapes, where Rudy Canaro was up at the big end of the scale, but these guys are still, staying in there for selling a product that you can manufacture for a couple $100 is pretty big thievery, I gotta say. Right? So John says somebody needs to invent low jack for grapes. Man, it's not something you think you got to post a guard out front of, but I mean, or weird. It's you just don't think about crops being stolen, right? There's some level of effort and to get there, so I think that's the deal. So, and then I don't know, as far as the counterfeiting thing's concerned, that's where you've got to. That's where I haven't read the details of it. I mean, it's not unknown in the wine world for attempts to counterfeit wines by blending together other wines, right? That it's not frequent by any stretch of the imagination, but it is not unheard of. On the other hand, the efforts that we as the consumer need to go in to ensure that our wine is good are usually fairly well protected. What I'm interested in is what types of measures did they do to ensure that the wine was sneaky? Right? Did they get illegitimate tax stamps? What were they doing for corking? How much effort were they making it look like it was supposed to? I'm curious as to their degree of felony that they're committing. So yeah. Anyway, well, thanks to David Mary that you like my shirt. That is again my wine folly, a great prize. Go buy yourselves one because this we're going to be talking today about. That's why the subject, right? We're going to be talking about the science, some of the science part of wine. Heard a couple of self-medicating jokes as far as alcohol was concerned, and as I said in the Facebook post, some of you may be self-medicating this week. Some of you maybe have been self-medicating since March, and well, wine and health is today's kind of topic because there is a ton, I mean, a lot of material out there when it comes to why wine is bad for you, why wine is good for you, how much drink wine's going to as this total panacea solution for all things. And we're going to kind of dig through some of those things, some of the medical truths, some of them separate from fiction, that kind of thing. So so Mark says that out in Southern California, people rustle avocados. Well, see, there you go. It's apparently crop theft is more common than we think. But it's one thing to half a ton. I mean, that's a lot of work, as you said, for a sneaky nighttime crew. Anyway, wine and health. Wine and health. So, preface, of course, I am a som, not a doc. This is simply reporting back to you on some of the things that are out there and well reported. None of this is medical advice. Seek your doctor for that kind of thing. But you may see a lot of things out there in the media talking about the health benefits of wine. That's kind of where we're going to focus today. A lot of it can be conflicting information, and at its core, the first kind of thing we need to talk about is segregating and segmenting the real from the clickbait. There's a ton of clickbait titles that are total BS that are really just designed to get you to open up a web page so that their advertising gets kicked off and that they can collect their pennies on the dollar for your eyeball impressions. So that idea of the first thing we need to talk about is, and how to kind of suss through things, is to not only check source, but kind of understand that the first kind of thing is that sniff test. Does this sound too good to be true? Does it sound like they are trying to legitimize a behavior that you're already doing anyway? That's probably a red flag that whatever it is that they say was probably not well documented and probably not well researched. You need to be able to separate and check sourcing to make sure that anybody who's referencing one of these particular aspects is using references from respected sources, not just pay for paper medical jargon. That's something that the media does, unfortunately, really well. Is that you hire they make a research agency comes up with a kookball theorem, does some very sketchy and edge of the woods kind of science, points to some really dubious conclusions that doesn't pass peer review at all. But hey, a study says, or oftentimes media outlets will take what they want to read by not reading the entirety of a particular paper or study. They just cherry pick that information. So watch out for those. I warn you. That is something to the things that you're talking about. I mean, I've seen everything from anti-aging, improved digestion, improved memory, improved sex appeal. I mean, all kinds of. If you just drink a little bit more wine, these things will happen to you. Makes me wonder about which one of the big wineries is backing that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that it's a mess out there. But believe it or not, there are real and well-documented studies. Sources that I'm going to be referring to and the info that I read through the articles and things that I was doing to research for the show, the sources include the Mayo Clinic and the Journal of Cellular and Molecular Medicine, both fairly well recognized names in the medical field. And I did, a pretty reasonable job of actually reading through some of their studies. Didn't read the thing top to bottom, but definitely kind of looking at their methodology, and most importantly about what conclusions they were trying to draw. And really what mostly comes out is what conclusions they cannot technically draw. There's still a lot of what might be. Okay, so there's just it's not enough well known, and part of this comes in from the fact of what it is that's being studied. So Polyphenolic compounds are something we've talked about several times on the show. Polyphenols to the rescue. This, by the way, means that we're generally speaking about red wines only, or technically orange wines as well. But polyphenols and the phenolic compounds come from the skins of grapes. So a wine has to remain in contact with its skin for a reasonable amount of time for those compounds to be present in the final wine product. That is why white wines don't get lumped into this category. Okay, so, but the polyphenols are, is a broad category of stuff. Okay, we're talking about tannins, right? For a primary thing we talk about from the skins. Color and pigmentation are polyphenolic compound byproducts. Aromas are all part of the polyphenol group. So this is necessary stuff to make the wine beverage as enjoyable as it is. But it's more prevalent in certain types of grapes. Some of the interesting parts of the study they did is if you want to gain these benefits at a peak kind of point, it would behoove you to seek out certain styles of grapes. Tannat, Petit Syrah, and Nebbiolo are three mentioned styles where the content of polyphenol compounds in those grape skins is higher than in others. And rather than say your Pinot Noirs, your Merlots, your Cabernet Sauvignons, kind of your typical popular red grapes. So if you're going to seek this out for your medicinal needs, those are, by the way, also some of those are pretty badass. Some great wines come from these. I love Petit Syrah. We've had a couple here for the fall season. We did Tannat when we talked about Uruguay on the lesser known reds style, the kind of crazy reds. Big dark wines. Nebbiolo, fantastic example from Italy. So definitely wines to check out. So the subgroups, though, actually, let me check over the chat live stream here. But people are still worrying about our rustling problem, livestock rustling. I'm telling you, man, you're not making any snake wine, John Kerry. I know you need to be a snake oil salesman, but if you want snake oil in wine, that's the whole clean wine movement we've talked about here. That's a bunch of snake oil bullshit. So there it is. Anyway, the subgroup of compounds within polyphenols. Procyanins, resveratrol, anthocyanins, and antioxidants. Okay, there's a lot of different studies on different angles of this that I observed. Different sources are varying over time, but broadly speaking, most of these chemical compounds that are part of this polyphenol group are antioxidant in nature. They're the most documented benefit that has been studied is the limiting of cholesterol plaque buildup, which is linked to heart disease. Okay, so this is that whole heart healthy thing, or you may have heard of what's called the French paradox, which is a study that back in the 70s, early 80s rather, that talked about how, despite the richer sauces, fat content of their cheeses and milks and such that were consumed by the average French person, that the red wine that they consumed helped keep those cholesterol levels and fat levels and rates of heart disease down. So very interesting thing that kind of got this whole health movement with red wine kicked off. But there's also ellagic acid. This is another antioxidant that is also reported to help reduce fatty liver buildup to help with obesity. I only read one paper that was this was a portion of a separate paper. But anyway, I mean, even that, so you see, when they do those sort of links, the way that you're going to get that pitched in some blog is going to be red wine helps you lose weight, right? And that is not necessarily an accurate statement. If all these other things are true, yeah, sure, but still, that's the kind of thing we kind of worry about. There's also, I saw differing things about ellagic acid not being present in wine or only being present in the oak staves, whereas the paper from Mayo Clinic pointed very clearly that it was one of the polyphenol compounds found in grape skins. So again, check your sources. So, but probably the most well-known is resveratrol, which, by the way, is not a cheesy pharma name for anything, although it really does sound like it to me. It's like, do you suffer from chronic depression, anxiety, and 20/20 disease? Have you worn the same pajamas for 2 weeks? then try resveratrol. Well, resveratrol is a polyphenolic compound that is found again as one of these high present compounds within red wine, right? So we like this. This is good stuff. And this one has also been pretty well studied. It's a small polyphenol, by the way, according to the paper. So not a lot of big chains in their phenol compounds, but it confers pretty strong protection in studies against metabolic, cardiovascular, and neurodegeneration diseases. There was even a resveratrol study that showed some chemopreventative and therapeutic effects for particular types of cancers, for some types of lung cancer and brain cancer. So there, again, the spammy headline is red wine, will prevent cancer. But this is that kind of classic, deep dive into under these circumstances, the following things happen, and it's really cool to see some of the what we put in our body picked apart and put back together into wow, this is why that Mediterranean diet, for instance, that you may have heard of, that idea that the red wine is something that's good for you. So let's talk about the other half that goes along with that, though, and that is consumption. Okay. That doesn't mean that we have to take the mindset that just because a little is good, that more must be better. If a glass of wine is good, clearly a bottle of wine is 4 times better, right? Wrong. The consumption amounts in many of these studies were really kind of the focus, and there's been some, as is wants to be, there's been some differentials on that too. But most of the research points to the optimal daily amount to be 1 glass for women and 2 glasses for men. Again, metabolic rates and various things, average body mass, that kind of thing, goes into this particular thing. But when we talk about 1 glass, we're talking about 5 ounces, 150 mils. So a glass a day, 2 glasses a day for men, kind of in there. Sorry, women, I guess it's one of the things. I mean, maybe if you identify as a wine bottle, you can go for more. Don't know. But research points that moderation word, that's that key. Now, this, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be. This is one of those things where you're having it like your daily multivitamin, right? This is something where variation is perfectly acceptable. There are, of course, studies that point to the fact that the safest amount, because of wine consumption, is no wine. Why? Well, because it's one of the other byproducts. Ethanol produces byproducts in your liver that are carcinogenic in nature. So when you get to the whole acetaldehyde subgroups and those are carcinogenic, and therefore you're introducing bad things at the same time you're introducing good things. So like all things, it's all about balance. So the other kind of funky factor to recall in there is that it may be just hold on a minute. It's not all just go off the deep end and grab a bottle of Petite Sirah and go, I'm curing cancer. Woo! The other thing is low alcohol by volume. One of the interesting notes that I thought of when I was reading these two counterpoints, Tannats, Petite Sirahs, and Nebbiolos are not low alcohol reds. You're actually going to have to seek out some different styles of red wine if what you want to see is under 12% alcohol by volume. So lower ABV is another key to that moderate consumption level. Most of our big red wines easily fall in the 13.5 to 15.5 range. So they're not necessarily, and you need to adjust accordingly. Now it's less than a glass kind of thing. So don't go off the deep end and just go chug-a-lugging your red wine for your own health. But like all things in life, moderation, a little here and there. Enjoy it when you can. A lot of the studies also point to just what average American drinking consumption was, overall wine consumption, and finding that the number of people that have in that 6 to 12 drinks per week category kind of be the most possible, the most prevalent, and putting at some moderate risk as far as relative risk to other people. But still, make your own lifestyle choices. It's all about the other parts of your diet, of your physicality, etc. All have a factor here. There's no there's no wonder bullet. And that, by the way, is the biggest thing that I see most often in all of these wine wellness articles, is that the pitch they're trying to make for you is that if you do this, you can then give up doing the hard stuff, which is sadly not true. Good diet, good exercise, et cetera, are the key to your long and healthy life, rather than just saying, haha, I'm drinking a glass of wine. It's just like going to the gym. But in other news, that there was that they did some other studies that other alcoholic beverages, spirits, beer, wine, all reported to have various effects in the same type of areas, although wine was by far credited for being the most efficacious when it came to the big properties that you're usually talking about, i.e., cholesterol buildup, heart disease, are the two main prongs that you're going to see. That red wine is good for your heart because it helps fight cholesterol, so it allows you to eat all that delicious French and Italian food and still live to see 90. So, yeah. So in the comments after the show, tell me, have you tried resveratrol? What's your favorite flavor of medicine? Were you ever recommended for by a doctor that wine or the Mediterranean diet was part of your consumption? I'd love to hear what your own experiences are. So put those in the comments when the video is all done, or put them in the chat when we talk about them there. But yeah, so that's kind of the wrap about that. And David Mary said it's all about balance by putting a glass in each hand. That's a different kind of balance, but I like where your head is. And no kidding though. This is the other part, guys. Is that in a moment of all seriousness, we've been talking a lot through this entire year of high anxiety and social distancing and being inside. And there's a lot of also very differing reports about consumption of alcohol, right? And I'm seeing a lot of industry stuff that basically contradicts a lot of what you're seeing in the news and the media. Because when it comes to sales, there are some trends, and the trends are very different, but they're not en masse. Oh my God, we're just drinking ourselves to death in 2020 because of COVID, right? We're not getting seeing that effect from the industry level, because what you're seeing the shift is right. We're drinking out a lot less. We just happen to be purchasing a lot more at two spaces, that being the retail direct and the large rise, the huge spike of the what they call the DTC sector, the direct to consumer sale, which, by the way, for a lot of manufacturers is a great thing. We've talked about my ire for the 3-tier system, and the idea that going directly to you, especially for a winery, is generally speaking better for their bottom line. They're cutting out that middleman and all that markup that we talked about on the money episode. And the money is instead going into their pocket for a very reasonable price. So that is something to think about, keeping your wineries alive and awesome. In fact, if we got rid of such systems, what you generally see is, if the direct consumer model could go, what I would guess you're going to see economically is a depression on prices. You're going to see prices come down because wineries shipping directly to you can afford to make good margin and not have to have those level prices. So now, bottle of wine that would normally go for $40, they can get away with selling for $30 because they're making much more of the profit. They're not paying that distributor. So your doctor. So John says his doctor told him to cut out wine entirely, and he laughed. Well, not listening to your doctor is not a good idea, John. I'm not going to endorse that. But I'm with you. I mean, I can't give up my wine. I mean, that's my thing. Job. The gym hurts more. Yes, in comparison to raising a glass of wine is boring to gym. I could agree. The gym hurts more. It's life, man. There's there's nothing for free. That's the part that I think annoys me most about the articles, is that they're always acting like, oh, if you just do this, it's free. No, nothing's free. Damn it, this stuff there's always a cost. Don't care what it is. So. Anyway, I've been sitting here enjoying my lovely grocery store grab. Let's get to talking about the GSG for the week. So, for those of you unfamiliar with the grocery store grab is our portion of the show where we talk about to get the best value per dollar at non-big box and non-specialty retailers. If you happen to shop at the grocery store, either for convenience or out of necessity, we want to talk about the interesting landscape that might present for you from a wine perspective. It can be more expensive than shopping online, either at a store or a big box store. So we want to make sure we get a good value. Also, how does somebody who's new to wine pick out good wine when there's this vast array of wine presented to them? So we're talking about label focus. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on these labels. These wines are not chosen with any prior research. Yours truly will be at the grocery store and make a purchase based on label alone. Now, of course, I have a degree of wine knowledge that is a little bit above the norm, but on the reality stage here, I approach it as if I knew nothing about it, because what I want is the wine bottle to talk me into why should I choose you. So today's selezione. Let's go over to Merf. All right, so this was a fun and attractive little label that caught my attention, and the kind of it's the winemaker's nickname is what I found out by reading the little label. But this is a Columbia Valley, Washington Cabernet Sauvignon. And when I checked out this wine, when I picked this up to check out the labeling, I was duly impressed. So just to give you guys some things here, I mean, right on the back, it says the distinct wine of David Merfeld, right? So you see right there, that's where he comes from. Merf is named from Merfeld. Cabernet Sauvignon, Columbia Valley. Who makes it? Got your label thing. What's it made of and where's it from? Right off the bat, very simple. So a striking label, nothing really particularly complicated. But here on the back of the label, right, they're doing their due diligence. And this is one of the better wine labels I've seen here in a while. So it, again, repeats the information from the front of the label, but it says Merf stands for something. More importantly, someone. David Merf Merfeld. His journey from Iowa family farmer to Washington winemaker started in brewing, with some interesting detours along the way. Merf believes in honest, hard work, and that's ingrained in this bottle of American craftsmanship. His wine is something to be discovered, tasted, and enjoyed with friends. Ask for it by name, Merf. Now that's one big paragraph on marketing. Doesn't really tell me much other than that this guy is awesome and he's got values and therefore you should trust me. Kick ass. But they separate out after that whole little thing. They've got a thing. Tastes like black cherry, vanilla, and toffee. Plain, understandable language, unrelatable flavors. Next line. Pair it with barbecue ribs, grilled steak, chocolate cake. Understandable, specific food pairings. So this is awesome. Even if you didn't know what a Columbia Valley Cabernet Sauvignon ought to taste like stylistically, they're telling you what their wine is right there. Right there on the back, they've given you that info. Okay, so this, it does not declare any, it says the varietal, but it doesn't say that it's a blend of anything on the label. Okay, so however, I did look up the wine when I was looking for the bottle shot that you saw just a moment ago, and so I was exposed to their website, which also meant that I got a little bit of notes from there as well. But again, that didn't influence my choice to purchase. It's just what I found out afterwards. It's actually a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, and I forget what the last little percentage is. But anyway, it's mostly Cab with a little twist in there. Again, something that most people misunderstand is that wines of 75 in California and 85% usually I believe in Washington and Oregon, of 85% or more of a single grape can be called that single grape wine. You know, because that's tends to be how we think of things. But anyway, that leavening, if you will, in there, that smoothing out is what the winery is using to produce an excellent product. So tells us where it is, tells us where the grapes are grown, tells us flavor words, tells us specific pairings. A+ label. The only other thing, the only thing that I could ask for would be, go ahead and let us know what the specific percentage of grapes is, even if that means printing labels every year. It's a big ask. I get it. And, I think we've been talking recently, the next thing about using augmented reality on rear labels, that ought to be something I want to promote within the wine world. I think a simple 2D barcode, because everybody's carrying around They're little computers in their hands these days, and we've got scanners that can quite easily pick a barcode, go to a website, or go to a document, which should, in my opinion, ought to be your tasting notes. So that way, if you don't have the verbiage to put it on this little, you know, five by three, 5x4 space, well then, at least let me look it up at the click of a button. Okay, so just my opinion, but still, A+ labeling, really good stuff. That's be awesome. So let's get into tasting a bit. So this is also another reason I chose this, not just because of its labeling, was also because Washington State is someplace where I'm trying to spend a little bit more of my palate time on. Really like a lot of the styles and approaches that come out of Washington winemaking. They are definitely distinct from their two southern cousins from both Oregon and California, and I think people tend to compare them poorly. And this is where understanding Washington Cabernet Sauvignon versus, say, Napa or Central California, etc., is something that I'm trying to appreciate and get better at. So this was a good example of, hey, I can not only entertain my personal palate interest, but it's a great example of a wine that I found at the grocery store. Now, this is part of the Illicit Wine Project. That is spelled with an E-L-I-C-I-T rather than illicit meaning illegal. But the Illicit Wine Project rather, is a collaborative thing between a bunch of winemakers who are basically marketing kind of in a group. We had a different wine from this, and I did not, again, I did not know this when purchasing it, but when I looked it up online, I'm like, oh, it's part of the Illicit group. We had one of their wines, the Tenant wines, that are from one of the winemakers at Chateau Saint Michel, another the largest winemaker within Washington State. So they've got some interesting side projects going on that are all kind of committed to the future of wine and letting people do cool expressions. It's a side project thing for really cool winemakers. So that Mr. Merf here, I think, is about to show off in his own particular way, which is kind of cool. So let's take a look here. Color-wise, this thing is on that classic deep garnet range. Very much speaks to its Cabernet heritage. It's exactly what you would expect. Dark, and not what I would call inky, but very dark and very solidly made. You swirl this around here on the nose. Definitely kicks with big dark fruit flavors. Again, it's got that sort of plum, blackberry, and plum kind of line, right? Let's remember what our flavor words were here. They wanted us to taste like black cherry, vanilla, and toffee. I can see that black cherry in there. Like I said, it's all about dark fruits, and I would even say my favorite's that with a really well ripened black cherry, where it's a little bit more sweet than sour tart, and then it's that nice, like right around the pit where the cherry is nice and dark. Right. So excellent on the dark fruit flavors there. Again, there's a little bit of vanilla in the back, probably from their oak process. Oh yeah. And the black cherry definitely, I think, follows in. Fully dry, right? Tannins are all around the mouth, mostly at the front, and they carry their fruit very, very well. This is um, it doesn't have a ton of layering to it. It is very straightforward, but all of the fruit carries straight to the front of your mouth. The tannins are very firm, but they are not obstructive. This is really well, again, for this class, and let's talk about class here. This was $16 lit before club price, $13 at the gate. Meaning, and by the way, that was their MSRP on their website too. $13 for a $13 cab. This is pretty on point. I am very impressed with their delivery. It certainly hits the. Is it well executed? Oh yeah. Is it on style? I would say this is where we're talking about the difference between California cabs and Washington cabs. Again, if you don't know anything going into this, your flavor words are your guide. But if you do know something going into this, you can say, oh, here's a Cabernet Sauvignon from Washington as opposed to what I'm used to, say, from California. And there are some distinct differences. Again, I think that It doesn't have nearly that Priazine bell pepper peppery note that you might see in some California cabs. I think compared to its Central Coast cousins, where you're going to be seeing the same price point, right? Because you're not going to, generally speaking, you're not going to get cabs from say Napa Sonoma at this price point, right? You're generally going to see maybe on the edge of some of the larger producers, but generally speaking, they're going to be a little bit more expensive. Lodi, Central Coast, and Paso Robles, much more. And this, for that same thing, has its own unique style, which I really dig. So I'm going to pop back over the chat here. So, oh, there's exactly everything in moderation. That absolutely right, Miss Boswell. And yes, you were already referenced as the gift giver of the amazingly cool shirt from Wine Folly. So you are given high fives and big thanks, because today's topic of medicine and wine hits the science part of our show. Oops, science part. I've realized that in the camera I'm backwards. So. Welcome, Donna Den. Better late than never. Fear not. You've missed an interesting talk about how wine's going to save your world. But anyway, and how to sort the BS from everyone. But now, redeeming the grocery store grab. Really enjoying it. I got to say, well executed. It is on style. Worth the price tag? Oh, yeah. In fact, this is that point where would be, I would call, very competitively priced. Seeing this same level of quality next to a $15 or $16 bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon from California, you're winning, because you're getting that same level of quality easily. And as we know, it's really odd to just talk about those few differences in dollars between say 10 and 20, where there's just these degrees and grades. But if you're going to get to brass tacks, every dollar matters there. It's kind of meaning it's kind of you're ticking up uh, the quality level. So with the just the difference of a couple of dollars can make that buying decision, especially for people who are new to wine. Um, we've talked about that. I don't know that we talked about that in the money episode quite as much, but I've had conversations several times. So my buddy Bob, who's the Cicerone, we talk about one of the differences between wine and beer, and that's the exploratory factor in beer is so much easier. It's so much easier to try something with very low risk when a really expensive bottle of a 12-ounce can slash bottle might cost you $5. That's on the expensive range, right? You can get a mixed 6-pack and mix and match and try some new stuff with very little buyer's remorse. When you go, it was $5 I didn't get back, not so good. It's really different in the world of wine, where people tend to be a little bit more crunchy on spending $40 on a bottle of wine they've never tried before. The low end of the scale tends to be a little bit less, and I think you find more mobility and willing to risk at that scale. But still, the difference between $15 and $20 bottle of wine sometimes is that buyer's decision. It's one of those, well, but if I buy this, I can buy more cheese. See? And that's always, as we know, cheese is a whole different influencer when it comes to wine. So yeah, I am all down. So this is the second wine that I've had from the Illicit Wine Project. The second that I can wholeheartedly approve. I'm fairly certain that they are not seeing that these at least 2 out of 2 have been from Washington State, which lends me to believe that this is probably a Washington State level project, which is great. Which means I could use that as a jump off point to explore other wineries, other winemakers, and other wine styles that hopefully will maintain this level of quality, and therefore, be something that I can count on for good exploration. So that's always nice to have. I've always said, as a buying tactic, if you find some wine that you like and really into it, try everything else that they make. Right? Go up and down their line, find out what else they make. It's a great exploratory way. If you don't know things about wine or about grapes, it's a great way to find new grapes that you like. If you're somebody who's fairly well wine educated, it's a great way to simply discover new labels, and with a person who that there's a good winemaker at the helm, so you can probably trust them that you're not going to be having that buyer's remorse. You're not going to worry about, oh man, that's $20 I could have spent on something I know. I'm always out there trying to encourage you guys to get out and try new stuff. I personally have to work really hard at it. In fact, by doing this full time now, it's great because it pushes me out of habit zones. When I do my shows, I have, I work towards making new wines accessible for clients and customers all the time. When I do shows at the Renaissance Festival, for instance, I'm always pulling in new wines every year, which is great, but that's only a certain portion of the year. That's only 2 months of my 12 months of my year, which means I've got 10 months of having to work hard to get outside my, oh, I'm just gonna buy the thing I always like, right? Because that's a really easy habit to get into. It's why when I look at my overall, like how I stash and how I build my wine cellar, um, I tend to keep 2 bottles of my favorite versatile things on hand for any given purpose. Okay, a couple bottles of Zin, a couple bottles of Chenin Blanc, a couple bottles of Cab kind of thing that are just kind of there. They live there and they're the house wines, right? So that I don't have to think twice if I decide I want to have a bottle of wine. I don't have to think twice if I want to open a bottle of wine when guests come over. Back when that used to be the things in the before times. Um, any of those options, those were what they're there for. However, you got to work to make those not the only wines you drink. Okay, so I have been very fortunate in the fact that I get to share these things with you. So, with WineShark Wednesday, for instance, I'm trying at least a new wine every week. Then I've got the shows on the weekends when we're doing online tastings, and I'm usually trying 2 or 3 additional wines there too. So, and again, I'm pushing outside those boundaries to make sure that new things. Sometimes I'm on the Friday shows, especially. I'm bringing you guys a wine that I'm well familiar with because it suits the purpose need of either a lesson being taught or whatever theme we've got. But even then, we're building on past that. Now, while there are 10,000 wineries within, the US alone, that doesn't mean you necessarily have good and frequent access to a lot of them. And so we do tend to kind of have big, a limited pool overall. But I guarantee you, there's a lot of wines that you haven't tried. I mean, if you just walk the store into just a grocery store, the grocery store I do my daily shopping does not have a really wide wine selection. Um, but when I say that, I actually, hang on, they've got a pretty damn decent wine selection for a grocery store. They've got one, two, three. They've got 3 full facings of what I would consider fine wines, and then they've got a double facing of plonk jug wines. Okay, not even counting that, those three facings, those 3 half aisles, is a pretty decent amount of wine, and I mean, they've got to have a couple hundred selections. That's amazing, right? Let alone if I go to a big box store. This is the thing where a grocery store here in Plano tends to have a lot better selection than the many small liquor stores that we have. And I think that opportunity is because people tend to shop at them, which is good. Whereas something like Total Wine or Specs or Siegel's, they've obviously got, they're a specialty liquor, beer, and wine store who focuses on finding more esoteric stuff, which is really cool. But those opportunities, like I said, may not be for everyone. And even as many of you fans have pointed out, not all Total Wines are created equal, not all Specs are created equal, not all Seagulls are created equal. The availability for you personally generally only falls within a certain range. That's where I encourage you to put a little portion of your wine exploratory experience into things like a wine club that goes based on tastes and flavors, right? Where you provide your particular preferences and they will ship you new shit. And that's cool because you get to explore and you're not limited now by the stuff that you're just seeing at your local store. So anyway, questions, I say. Do you has them? I've been rambling on here for quite a bit. So now it's time for you to do the work for me. And I'll provide me some questions that we've got there. So yeah, John said we're gonna go back to the chat here. John says great level. Yeah, I think I do kind of like it. It's very simple. Graphic designer was good, and the overall shape has this M impression of the chevron meets the thing. So the graphic designer in me respects the graphic designer in me. Donna said you'd catch up on the show later. Well, you are very sweet to say so. Glad that you can catch up on the topic. Always something fun. especially because it was focusing a lot of my time on this show and the Friday shows rather than individual small videos lately. Topic wise, some of the things that I wanted to do are still kind of bubbling out. I'm trying to get them to be a little bit more in depth, slightly longer. Well, not necessarily slightly longer, but a little bit more well rounded and cool production values. For instance, I'm rewriting the script that I did for the money episode of WineShark Wednesday into a permanent video, but I'd like to also integrate the tiers, the price tiers into the discussion. What is the difference between the 5 to 10 range, the 10 to 20 range, et cetera, and kind of break those into my own. Because there's several other guides out there on that. I have my own kind of personal twist on them. The industry actually thinks about them, I think, more different in a much different fashion than we, the consumer, particularly does. But that's, I think they put too many fine points on what we would consider broad. So anyway, all right. Everybody's too busy. Everybody's busy enjoying their evening and drinking, which is good because when I'm done here, I'm making tacos. That is what I'm doing after days of stress and all this other thing. Helping out people with their voting process yesterday, which was cool. But still, we've got 2 dogs that are kind of worn out after their particular trip to the dog park today. So. Barbara says she looked up illicit projects and all the wines listed as Columbia Valley, Washington State. Yeah, that's as I thought. I was not after hitting 2 of 2. The coincidence is not unlikely. So I'm drinking a little Petit by Michael David. Very nice. Petit Syrah and Petit Verdot. And then you gotta love the way that it's spelled different in both ways because they spell the name Petit different with the different grapes. So it is makes you wonder sometimes. Ampelographers, they're a curious bunch, I gotta say. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed. Now the cool part is, well, it said it would go for barbecue. Now the question will be, will it go with my ground beef tacos? I will report back later, I'm sure. So, anyway, let's talk about what's upcoming, since we don't have many other questions on there. Let's see. Upcoming shows. We've got Wine and Cheese 6. Entertain My Cheese. This is a show we're going to talk about in the cheese show. We're going to talk about laying out a cheese tray and care and feeding of the cheese, that kind of thing. Basically, just bring a good selection and how to be a good host with cheese. It's going to be fun. Found a fun new resource that I will share with you guys on that too. So. Surprises. Then the show after that on the 13th is the Holiday Wine Selection Guide. So we're talking, that show will be focused a little bit more on just wine entertainment for the holidays, not necessarily the Thursday holiday coming up soon. That's separate. So we're going to do a holiday wine selection show, how to maximize your success with minimal number of bottles, appeal to a large audience, whether you are a wine drinker or not, to make sure that you've got a nice broad selection and can please all palates with as minimum fuss and mustn't fuss. The day after that, we're going to be doing a larger version of that show, meaning 5 wines instead of 3, up at Reunion Tower in downtown Dallas. See the Facebook page for details on that, but tickets are available. Patreon members, go check your thing there. There's a discount code for you guys on Patreon as well. So then the week after that, that's the Thanksgiving show. That's Bacchus Comes to Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about Thanksgiving traditions, Thanksgiving foods, and Thanksgiving wines. What to bring to your Nana's house when you just need to have a great bottle of wine with that turkey. So be awesome. Bacchus Comes Thanksgiving. Then we'll be off for Thanksgiving week, and then December we'll pick up. And I've got the schedule, but I don't have it written in front of me, so I'm not going to bother. So anyway, besides which, that's a whole month away. We got 4 shows between now and then at least. So that'd be kind of cool. So I hope you guys will join us for some of those. There's going to be be a lot of fun. We had really a good time last week with the Fall Harvest Special cooking show, and discovered some fun recipes that I think I hope will enter into your lexicon as well. So Cuthbert said just purchased tickets for the tower. Excellent. Well, we will be looking forward to seeing you there, Mr. Cuthbert. It's been too long, but then there's that whole, you know, time for 2020, and I hope you're feeling better with your knee surgeries, as multiples as they are. So that's the show's going to be a lot of fun, and we're also doing a show. We're supposed to be planning a show in December as well. When I say we, I not only mean the Reunion Tower events by Amy events with Amy thing. In that case, you may be also seeing me with my co-pilot Bob Floyd and the Two Penny Beer situation. So we might have a combo show going on for you. Fun beer and wine, lots of fun. So it's perfect way to do that, celebrate for the holidays, because we're all going to need a cup of cheer. I'm just saying, we deserve what we're doing here. We've earned that. PJ Pants or no, you've earned it. So excellent. So that's all the topics that I've got for you guys. I mean, I'm not. If you guys don't have any questions for me, I'm gonna let class out early, which is another way of saying eat tacos. So, because tacos, they're not gonna cook themselves. Although, Laszlo, you should learn how to cook tacos. This would be a skill that I think my dog should learn. That would make him truly the best dog. All right, guys. Well, I hope you all are staying safe out there. Hope you are enjoying this delightful fall and a cool fall evening. I want to thank you guys for your participation, for your questions, and of course for your patronage. If you like what we're doing here, like and subscribe to the channel. Share with a wine-loving friend. We still haven't hit our 100 viewers yet, so that you can get a very special show from Flynn Markley when we get to that stage. So, and then, of course, if you really like what we're doing, support us over on Patreon. We've got some new benefits coming up for Patreon members, discounts to shows, things like that. So, always fun and great info. So I hope you guys enjoy. I will see you all soon. Till next time, I've been your WineShark. Cheers. I still need to check how long this, ending stream thing goes on and how much I should keep talking when I click the button. But I'm going to find out this time, darn it.